Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. Yesterday, we pretty much produced all Lakers-related content because there was a lot of things that was going on yesterday. One of them was the fact that Kendrick Perkins went on ESPN First Take, and he essentially said that the Lakers should consider parting ways with LeBron James because he has been noticing LeBron has been having some very poor body language. It looks like LeBron doesn't want to be there. This is obviously, according to Kendrick Perkins, is observations of him from spending time with him, being his teammate, growing up with him, whatever. All of these things are the reason why he ended up saying that. And we did a live about that. And a lot of people have been kind of saying this in Laker Nation. A lot of Laker fans don't want LeBron on the team. This is the fact. Like, they don't. A lot of them wish that he was gone. A lot of them are over this experiment, and they feel like it went on for too long. The return on investment isn't high enough. They had one bubblicious ring, and ever since then, it's just been chaos and drama, missing the play-in, missing the playoffs, exiting the first round, just a bunch of nonsense, right? And Laker fans have kind of had enough. So coming into this season, LeBron was slated to miss some games. And in the midst of him missing games, the Lakers quickly found out that they had an all-star player in Austin Reeves that was with them. We never knew that this guy was this good until he had an opportunity to really shine this year. And when LeBron was out, Austin Reeves was averaging at one point almost 30 points per game. He was the Lakers' second best playmaker. Him and Luka Doncic were gelling. The Lakers were a better defensive team. They looked much sharper offensively. Players seemed to understand their role. The energy just seemed a lot more positive around the team. And you didn't have JJ Redick going out there to the media and saying all of the things that he's been saying over the last 24, 48 hours, even when they lost. I mean, if you go back to the loss that the Lakers had against the Oklahoma City Thunder, there was never this doom and gloom about the team. But now all of a sudden we have noticed that there's been a shift. JJ Redick admitted as much, that they don't have it anymore. He said it in a recent post-game post-game interview conference or whatever. And now if you look at Austin Reeves' numbers over the last 5 games, get this. He's averaging over the last 5 games 18 points per game on 42 field goal shooting percent, 42% from the field, 33% from the three. His assist numbers are 4.4. At one point he was averaging over 7, and his rebounding numbers are now 3.6, right? And his minutes per game are 30 minutes. So he's getting minutes, but it's a totally different effect that he's having out there. So yesterday, some news dropped that Austin Reeves was going to be missing some considerable time. And if you guys remember the last game that the Lakers played against the Houston Rockets, Austin Reeves went out after the second quarter with, I think, a calf strain. So now we're having a major update about Austin Reeves' status moving forward, and it's a major blow. So let's get into this report here. It says Lakers receive major blow with Austin Reeves injury news. It continues on. This is the opposite of ideal for the Los Angeles Lakers. After exiting Lakers Christmas Day matchup with the Houston Rockets early due to a sore left calf, Austin Reeves is expected to miss at least 4 weeks of action due to a calf strain. Austin Reeves expected to miss a month with a calf strain. Reeves had recently returned for the Lakers after missing 3 games due to a left calf strain. The game against Houston was just his second game back. Perhaps he came back a little too early. The projected timeline will keep Reeves sidelined until late January or early February, which isn't ideal for the Lakers team vying for the playoff positioning in the Western Conference. Following their loss to Houston on Christmas, the Lakers sit 4th in the Western Conference at 19-10. The loss to Houston was the 3rd straight loss for the Lakers, and head coach JJ Redick ripped his team after the game. And then he said, "We don't care enough right now," Redick said, and that's the part that bothers me enough. We don't care enough to do the little things or do the things that are necessary. We don't care enough to be professionals. And then continues on, the Lakers have time to right the ship, but Reeves' extended absence will make doing so more difficult. On the season, Reeves is averaging 26.6 points per game, 6.3 assists, 5.2 rebounds per performance. So you heard what that article had to say there. Now I want to get back quickly to the Lakers standings before we address what was said here in this report. Yes, the Lakers are the number 4 seed in the Western Conference. Mind you, they've lost 3 games in a row, but this standing is deceptive. The reason it's deceptive is because the Lakers haven't been playing anyone. And if you look at all of the losses that they've had in the month of December, it's been to teams with over 500 records with the exception of the Los Angeles Clippers. So whenever they play stout competition, they lose. Now, let's get to the bigger picture of all of this. The Lakers, I said it about 2 weeks ago, the Lakers are cooked. And at the time that I said it, it seemed like a hot take. Oh, Charles is reaching. Charles is a LeBron James hater. No, the guy has made the team worse. And now everyone is seeing it. You went from Winnie the Pooh, low lights or whatever, talking about LeBron is adding something to the Lakers that they just can't have and sitting up there twerking it up with sparks of honey flying and flickering off of his mustache and just having a good old time, to now we can't even find this dude. The dudes that thought LeBron was going to do something for this team are now quickly realizing that this team is atrocious. When I say atrocious defensively, and he only makes them worse. In terms of defensive rating, player defensive rating, he's the worst one on the team. Austin Reeves has a higher defensive rating than LeBron. Luka Doncic has a higher defensive rating than LeBron James. Now, if you look at their stats, I want to just pull up their stats quickly. As a unit. Here are the Lakers stats over the last 10 games. And mind you, the Lakers are 4-6 over their last 10 games. Let's look at the numbers that they've been putting up over these last 10 games. All right. The Lakers are averaging 111.8 points per game. Their offense is really, really struggling in this time frame, and their defense is just atrocious. Right now, if you look at their defense, although it's saying that they're rated, no. That was last year's team. Let's look at this year's team. This year, their defensive rating is 26 out of 30. They're giving up to opponents 117 points per game. That's 19th in the NBA. Offense, they're 13th. This is not going to work, and it's only going to get worse. That's the point I want to get to. With Austin Reeves out of the lineup, my projection is the Lakers are going to get worse. I don't see them getting better. I think they're going to get worse because the only thing that saved them thus far is the teams that they were playing. And if we look at their schedule moving forward, let's look at the teams that they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing the Sacramento Kings. They're going to be playing the Pistons, which is a good team. The Grizzlies, we'll see how they play with John Moran coming back. Then they have the Pelicans. Then they have the Spurs. Then they have the Bucks. Then they have the Kings again. And then they have the Hawks. Now, theoretically, they should win pretty much almost at least 80% of these games, but given the way that they play and the fact that they don't play defense and the energy surrounding the team, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost most of these games. So this is the new reality. And for the people that were saying the Lakers should trade away Austin Reeves, which is not going to happen, and they feel like he was such a detrimental factor to the team, let's see what they can do now that LeBron is back. Let's see if Luka Doncic and LeBron James can capture the same magic that Luka and Reeves did. Let's see if he can do it. LeBron fans, let's see what LeBron got. As you guys know, usually in the NBA, we have certain players that dominate particular eras. Going back to Magic and Bird, of course, you have the Chicago Bulls run where they dominated. Then you had the early part of the early 2000s with the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. And then, of course, you had Kobe that picked it up towards the end of the 2000s, where they ended up naming him the player of the decade. Funny enough, that was Bleacher Report that named Kobe Bryant the player of the decade. Pretty interesting how a player of an entire decade doesn't make their top 10. I digress. But then after that, LeBron was there, and then out of nowhere came this guy called Stephen Curry. Right? Stephen Curry just came out of nowhere and really took the league by storm. But more importantly, I think he took LeBron and his fan base by storm, because Stephen Curry just came along. He didn't have all of the fanfare and hype that LeBron had coming into the NBA. He just came in here and he didn't really start off so hot in his NBA career because he was dealing with ankle issues early on in his career. And as a matter of fact, I remember seeing Stephen Curry one year in Madrid. believe it or not, I was in Madrid with my family and my pops and all of them. And I just saw one guy walking by. I saw Stephen Curry, and he was walking by, and I saw his dad, Del Curry, and he was like on a call, and they were just walking through like a crowd, right? And I remember seeing him there, and he was just kind of going on his way there out there in Madrid. But really, ever since 2015 is when Steph just kind of took over the NBA, right? He was drafted in 2009 as a 7th overall pick, but it was really in like 2015 where things just popped off. And of course, that year he won his first championship. That year he won a unanimous MVP, the only one ever. He won 2 regular season MVPs back to back. He was an all-star the year prior. Then he was the all-star game MVP later on in his career. And then, of course, he made the all-NBA first team 2 years in a row. And, of course, he was part of the 50-40-90 club. And he just really took the NBA by storm. And him and the Golden State Warriors, of course, you had the Splash Brothers and all of that. And he was able to garner so much fans. And in the midst of all of this, LeBron James is there, right? And now when you look at things, Stephen Curry is sitting on 4 championships, the same way LeBron is sitting on championships. And some people have been questioning, well, whose era has it been? Because some people like to say, oh, LeBron is a GOAT. He's like, well, how can you be the GOAT when you have another guy in your era that won as much as you? Right? How can you be the GOAT? So anyway, I came across an article this morning from Fadeaway World, and it says, Kevin Garnett claims Stephen Curry is the greatest player of this era. And I'm like, oh, Lord, this is going to be fireworks. Actually, you know what? Let's play what Kevin Garnett had to say to Paul Pierce. I want you guys to listen to that, and then we're going to read this article. Take a listen to KG here.
I think all the young stars of our league are starting to come into their own. I said this countless times. I think that we are in the Curry era. You know, he is the GOAT of this era. When we talk about the long ball and the 3 ball, you got to talk about the messiah of that long ball. You understand? And that's how I look at it. So in this era right here, I'm watching all the Ammon twins. Those twins, Amen and what's their name?
Asar. The Thompson twins.
We didn't see them come out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? We got stars that are just blossoming out of this league. That man, look at Cade Cunningham. Cunningham, them are the number 1 team in the East. We wouldn't have, but when you watch their trajectory and you watch that Knicks series, you see what you're seeing, right? So, yeah, man, I'm so excited about what the future is. The rookies that's coming, that came into the league this year, Panicle, Flag, McQueen, and all these guys. Then we got another rookie class coming in 26P.
That's gonna be crazy.
We're gonna look at Tatum. We're gonna look at Brown. We're gonna look at all these, certified superstars, and we got all these young, hungry wolves. Just man, bro, the league is finna be in a really good place, bro. I mean,
for sure.
And it's time. I think it's time. You know what? The first time in a long time, I think it's time for expansion. I think our league is time for expansion. I think so. I think we're gonna have an abundance of so much talent that we're gonna need a couple more franchises to open. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be one abroad. We need to talk more abroad with more. Did you know that 30% of our league is international?
Word.
Like, we're going to have to start paying attention to that and drawing that in, man. We're losing that. We got a third of the players being in the league. They finna do an all-world team. Not an all-star team, but an all-world team. So that means some of those world players are going to be all-stars. Bro, we're just going into a new wave of business, and I love it. I think it's needed. Mm-hmm. I think with the TV contract being where it's at, I think all it just presents for new narratives and great content. So, yeah, I look forward to the stories in 226, man. It's been a dope year, no doubt. Real 25, thank you. I'm certified. You know what it is.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say. Now, before I get into my comments, I just want to read a little bit. It says, there's no debating Curry's resume. 4 championships, 2 MVPs, including the first unanimous MVP in league history and an NBA Finals MVP in 2022. Along with that, 11 All-Star selections, 11 All-NBA selections, 2 scoring titles, and the title of the greatest shooter that God has ever created. More importantly, Curry changed how basketball is played at every level. Spacing became mandatory. Pull-up threes became normal. Big men were forced to stretch the floor. Kids stopped dreaming about post moves and started practicing shots from the logo. Entire defensive strategies and schemes were built to track where Curry was standing, especially when he does not have the ball. That is why Garnett is calling Curry the GOAT of his era. He's not just talking about accolades, he's talking about influence. And yet, there's one name that Kevin Garnett boldly overlooked, LeBron James. If Curry revolutionized the era, LeBron defined it through dominance. LeBron entered the league in 2003 and is still going strong in 2025. 4 titles, 4 MVPs, 4 finals MVPs, a record 21 All-Star selections, 21 All-Star, 21 All-NBA selections, 21 All-Star selections, the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. He has the focal point of the league for over 2 decades and remains his face. While Curry reshaped the game, LeBron ruled it across generations. He has outlasted entire draft class and have come after him and has lived through different eras. In this GOAT, is this the GOAT of an era, the player who dominates the longest, or the one who changes the sport so completely that everything after him looked different? Garnett clearly lands on the second definition. To him, Curry is a symbol of modern basketball. The long ball is not a weapon anymore. It's a foundation, and Curry is the reason. But even Garnett's take does not erase the reality. This era belongs to both men in different ways. Curry revolutionized how the game is played, while LeBron dominated how the game is won. Okay, I want to quickly react to this article. This article is doing a lot of covering up for LeBron here. When we say dominate, by definition, what we're talking about is winning. Right? The Chicago Bulls dominated the 90s not because of Michael Jordan's play style, not because Michael Jordan led the league in scoring 10. No, they dominated because they won, and in the fashion in which they won. The Bulls have 2 three-peats in the same decade. That's domination. So when we're talking about dominating, apart from stats, we're talking about winning. If you just have a bunch of stats, but you're not winning, and it's just personal accolades, you're not dominating the NBA. The guy that's hoisting the trophy at the end of the year, those are the people that are dominating the league, right? So it's not just MVP awards and all of that. Obviously, you also have to look at who has the better team and all of that, but ideally, that's what we're talking about. Now, in terms of the Curry and LeBron thing, it's going to be hard to say you dominated an era when another guy won as many championships as you. I can't say Kobe dominated the 2000s. He didn't dominate it. He was the best player in the 2000s, but he didn't dominate it. Why? Because there was another guy that was also winning championships. Tim Duncan has 5 championship rings. 5 of them. Shaq has 4, right? So when it was LeBron's time, he has 4 and Curry has 4. In terms of influence, he's right there. In terms of popularity, he's right there. And Curry right now is more popular than LeBron James when it comes to jerseys. He's more popular than him. When it comes to views online, he's more popular than him. So it's hard to say that LeBron dominated the era, but what Kevin Garnett is saying, I don't think it's controversial. It's only controversial because the media twerks it up so much for LeBron James. But the fact of the matter is, Curry is a needle. He moves the needle as well when it comes to ratings and all of that. And I think Stephen Curry needs to have his respect. But you're going to be hard pressed to talk about you dominated when you only won 4 championships and somebody else did it too. That's not domination. Michael Jordan, if anything, dominated. Because during the height of his powers, no one won as much as him. Magic Johnson didn't win as much as Michael Jordan. Larry Bird didn't win as much as Michael Jordan. He won more than all of them. So it's clear to see the guy that stands on the hill is him, for example, if we're looking at his time in the 80s and 90s. You can't say the same about LeBron. You can't. You can't. You just can't. It's more of a Magic Johnson, Larry Bird kind of thing. It's not a Michael Jordan kind of thing. Now, some people I've noticed over the last month or so, about the last month and a half or so, let me say, we've been producing quite a bit of political content, and we've been attracting a lot of new viewers. And some of these people have been saying, "Hey, man, I signed up to hear some of your political takes, man. Can you do us a solid here?" And over the last few days, we've just been so focused on NBA content. But I said, okay, there's some things that have been happening over the last week or so that I definitely want to weigh in on, because I think a lot is happening that I think people want to hear my opinions on. So recently, TPUSA, Turning Point USA, the organization that was founded by Charlie Kirk, the late Charlie Kirk, had an event that I think was spearheaded by his wife. And at this event, you had a plethora of conservative speakers. Just to name a few: Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and a few other, Steve Bannon, and many others. And an event like this is a place where it's kind of like a meeting of the minds, where you share ideas, share thoughts, talk about the things that are concerning you, maybe talk about initiatives that they want to pursue going into the future. And it's a place where conservatives, MAGAs, however you want to call them at this point, the lines are so blurred at this point, just get together and kind of try to chart a way forward and gel. Well, that's not what happened. Okay, that is absolutely not what happened. Instead of this being a moment for them to come together, especially given some of the things that the president is facing with the Epstein files, the polls, with his numbers falling in the polls, some of the economic strife that exists out there, one would have thought that they would have came together. But instead, what ended up happening was just total chaos that ensued. You had Ben Shapiro going after people like Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. You had Tucker Carlson firing back at the same event. And you could just see that there's a fracture here within MAGA. And now you have different groups of people just basically peeling off into different subgroups. And I'm saying to myself, how do these guys expect to win in the midterms when they're so fractured? So we want to get into some of the sound here. So what we want to do is want to play some of what Ben Shapiro had to say about Tucker Carlson, Andrew Tate, Nick Fuentes, and the whole conservative movement. And then want to come back and then play what Tucker Carlson had to say in response. Take a listen to Ben Shapiro here.
If Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Kirk casting aspersions at TPUSA and the people who work here, who worked with Charlie every single day, his best friends, to cast aspersions at Mikey McCoy and Andrew Colvin and Blake Neff and Tyler Boyer, and yes, at Erica Kirk, and to imply or outright claim complicity in a cover-up over Charlie's murder, to spew absolutely baseless trash implicating everyone from French intelligence to Mossad to members of TPUSA in Charlie's murder or a cover-up in that murder, then we, as people with a microphone, have a moral obligation to call that out by name. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here, are guilty of cowardice. Tucker Carlson, it is not an excuse to go silent on Candace's targeting of TPUSA, or to mirror her lines of questioning because you love Candace personally. The same holds true of Megyn Kelly, a person I consider a friend, characterizing Candace as a young mother and thus shying away from condemning her actions or fibbing about them. That is a non-starter. Meghan Markle is a young mother. Ilhan Omar is a young mother. That doesn't matter. And when Megyn said this week, quote, "My goal and my job here is to try to understand, yes, where Candace is coming from on this," and says she sees no purpose in inserting herself, quote, into this on one side, that is a moral and logical absurdity. There is only one moral side here, Erica Kirk's side. We have a duty to take responsibility for what we say and do. If we hire awful people, we're responsible for that. I have some experience there, as you might suspect. That means that if we offer a guest for your viewing, we owe it to you to ask the kinds of questions that actually get at the truth. If we agree with the guest, that's fine, but we should own it. So, for example, if you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving, anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, you know, the Nick Fuentes who said that the Vice President of the United States is a, quote, fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet. The person who said that Charlie Kirk was a, quote, retarded idiot. The person who said, and pardon my language here, it's his quote, that he, quote, took Turning Point USA and that's why it's filled with groypers. If you have that person on your show and you proceed to glaze him, you ought to own it. There is a reason that Charlie Kirk despised Nick Fuentes, and indeed even chided Dinesh D'Souza for debating him. He knew that Nick Fuentes is an evil troll, and that building him up is an act of moral imbecility. And that is precisely what Tucker Carlson did. He built Nick Fuentes up. And he ought to take responsibility for that, just as he ought to take responsibility for glazing pornographer and alleged sex trafficker Andrew Tate, or for mainstreaming fake historian and pseudo-Nazi apologist Daryl Cooper as America's best and most honest popular historian. Hosts are indeed responsible for the guests they choose and the questions they ask those guests. Because we have a duty to truth, we also have a duty to provide you with evidence of the claims that we make. Emotive accusations, conspiracy theories, and just guessing questions, that's lazy and stupid and misleading. None of them are a substitute for truth. None of them are a substitute for evidence. So, when Candace Owens says, I don't know, but I know, that is retarded. And we are all more retarded for having heard it.
Excellent. So you heard what he had to say. He didn't mince any words, and he started calling out people by name. You don't normally see that. Remember, the president just took power just about a year ago. This is his first year in office. It's about to be over with, and you're already seeing all of this infighting. Now, the thing about Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro, he said some of the things that even Nick Fuentes said about him. Remember, Tucker interviewed Nick Fuentes, and the sentiment around the MAGA movement or the conservative movement seems to be, based off of what I've heard and what some of these people have said about each other, is that Tucker seems to be a weasel, right? So what we want to do is I want to play what Tucker had to say in response to Ben Shapiro calling him out on stage, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what he had to say there.
I just got here, and I feel like I missed the first part of the program. I hope I didn't miss anything meaningful. But I just want to say, I don't think I did. No, I'm just kidding. I watched it. I laughed. That kind of bitter, sardonic laugh that emerges from you when, like, Upside Down World arrives. When your dog starts doing your taxes and you're like, wait, it's not supposed to work this way. To hear calls for, like, deplatforming and denouncing people at a Charlie Kirk event, I'm like, what? This is hilarious. The last several months of Charlie's life were devoted in part to arguing about this event, in fact, this speech, in fact, my speech here, which he asked me to do earlier this year, this summer, and was immediately put under just immense pressure from people who give money to Turning Point, I would assume good people, but who wanted him to take me off the roster. And this has all become public, and the whole thing is so sad that I never talk about it, except to say Charlie stood firm in his often stated and deeply held belief that people should be able to debate, and that if you have something valid to say, if you're telling the truth, you ought to be able to explain it calmly and in detail to people who don't agree with you, and that you shouldn't immediately resort to shut up racist. I wonder why. Why are you asking that question? I detect in the question a certain evil in your soul. And everyone listening should know that listening to you implicates them, and that they someday may be asked to denounce you, and that friendship is not a reason to defend someone. Love is no defense. I kind of thought we'd reached the end of that, and as far as I'm concerned, we have, and I'm not going to play by those rules. I'm not going to engage in that. If someone doesn't like what I think, fine with me, as long as I get to express it. That's my view. But let me just say something more broadly about where the conservative movement, whatever that is, the people who voted for Trump, the Trump coalition, and the supposed civil war going on within that group. I don't think it's real. I think it's fake. I think it's totally fake. I don't think, and I've had cause to think a lot about this because I've been unwittingly involved in the proxy war. There are two things going on here, and I'm not guessing. One is jockeying for position post-Trump. So Trump created this amazing coalition, bringing in people who had never voted Republican before but were very enthusiastic about him. And that coalition took over the most powerful government in the history of the world. So there's a lot at stake here. And so the question becomes, who gets to run it after? Who gets the machinery when the president exits the scene? And there are a lot of people in Washington, maybe even in this room, who aren't quite sure what they want, but they know they don't want J.D. Vance. Okay? And so the attack, and you heard it from the stage tonight, there's someone here who's a very bad man, and he's friends with J.D. Vance. Could be me. I am sad about being used in a proxy war over politics in which I'm not involved in any level. I'm not an advisor to anybody. But I just think I should say that out loud, okay? There are people who are mad at J.D. Vance, and they're stirring up a lot of this in order to make sure he doesn't get the nomination. So this is true. So this raises the obvious question, which is, why are they mad at J.D. Vance? Such a nice guy, which he is. They're mad at J.D. Vance because he is the one person, and things could change, of course, but right now, who really kind of buys the core idea of the Trump coalition. Now, what is that idea? Ladies and gentlemen, anyone know? Anyone know? America first. It's America first. It's really simple. Which I notice some people are pretty anxious to retire that phrase. Remember when they told us? That's a bigoted phrase. Really? It is. And then they just decided to ignore it in favor of MAGA. Make America Great Again, which I'm obviously for. But how do you make America great again? By putting America first. Now, what does that mean? I'll be more precise. It's not a complicated concept. It's a really simple concept. The U.S. government, the largest organization in human history with the most well-funded military in history, ought to, in all the decisions it makes, put the interests of American citizens first.
Fantastic. So you heard his thoughts. What are my thoughts about this? Okay. What are my thoughts about this? Things done changed, folks. That whole kumbaya, let's hold hands. We're going into the future. We're going to crush them. It's over with. And I'm going to tell you why. One of the major things that caused this fracture was the president's comments over the Jeffrey Epstein files and that scandal. The president, who campaigned on transparency, draining the swamp, he's an outsider going to Washington to fix things. His base bought into this idea. For goodness sakes, after he won the presidency, he said, after that assassination attempt, he said that God saved his life, I'm paraphrasing here, to make America great again. And his viewers and his followers bought into this. So as he's talking about, we're here for transparency, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to call out all the Washington elites. Here you have a situation where you're in a position to release the Epstein files. And then the president starts to go out of his way to do everything he can to not release the files. His supporters begin to call him out and say, Mr. President, this is not what we signed up for. And then he labels them idiots. Okay? He labels them idiots. So right there and then, you cause the fracture. Because the people that were supporting you are now saying, wait a minute, are you covering up for, I'm not going to say the word peas and all of this, the people that do unsavory things to kids and all that. So you had that. Then we got to the point where, as we were leading up to the release of the files after the House drafted the articles and then the president ultimately signed it after, the House, and then it went to the Senate and ultimately the president signed for the Epstein files to be released. They dropped the files and almost everything was redacted. If you go back to the article that the president signed, the law that the president signed, one of the major things they said was redaction should only be made if it's in an attempt to protect who? The victims. But political officials should not be spared. Celebrities should not be spared. Conspirators should not be spared. And that is, and then the DOJ did the total opposite. And then what started happening was, days after they dropped the first files, people started to go on the internet and they figured out clever ways to unredact the redacted files, where you could see various people's names mentioned in them. And guess whose name got mentioned in one of the latest files? President Trump. I want to quickly read something. I'm not going to read too much into it in terms of the article. This is from thetime.com. And it says, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It says, Trump named in new Epstein files published by Justice Department. The Department of Justice has published thousands more files related to its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, including a case that references our allegation involving President Donald Trump, as well as a correspondence stating that Trump traveled on the convicted sex offender's private jet many more times than previously had been reported. Following the publication, of an initial tranche of documents over the weekend, Tuesday's release included a number of fully redacted files similar to earlier disclosures that drew sharp criticism for the extent to their redactions. Nearly all the files made public Tuesday contain at least some redactions, primarily of names and email addresses. So you have that first part, right? A lot of his supporters, a lot of those people that voted for Trump are pissed off about that. Then you have the aspect of where he tried to bring in Bill Clinton. Remember, Trump, after the files were released, went out there and said, you know, he really feels bad for Bill Clinton. You know, I feel bad for him. He shouldn't be doing this to him and releasing these pictures. But President Trump was the one that had been pointing everyone's attention in the direction of Bill Clinton all these years. Remember, he said it was Democrats you're going to find in there? So after they now released the first batch of the files, you see former President Bill Clinton there. I think one of the pictures is like in a pool or jacuzzi or something like that. You're now talking about you feel bad for. How can you feel bad for him when you were the one that was saying that, oh, Bill Clinton's name is in the files. Prince Andrew's names are in the files. And then something interesting happened, which I think the president didn't account for. He thought that he would try to make it this kind of democratic thing. And then what did Bill Clinton say? He said, release all the files, even the ones that I'm in. Clinton said, release all of the files, even the ones that I'm in. Then you have that aspect of it. I'm just talking about why you see this going on, why we saw what took place at TPUSA go on. Then you have the economy, which is in total shambles. The president is talking about the economy that's not doing well is a hoax. It's a hoax. That's not going over well with Americans, even Americans that voted for him. Then, of course, you have a clashing of thoughts, which is the America First crowd versus the Israel First crowd, which is why some Republicans, conservatives, I don't even know how to characterize these people at this point, don't like Ben Shapiro because they feel like he's Israel First. Remember, he's a Jew. Right. And there are a lot of people that don't like the fact that it seems like America is being controlled by Israel, that America should be America first. Hence the comments that Tucker Carlson made at the end. Here's my prediction after all of this. My prediction is this moving forward. I think that if these guys don't shape up and try to find a way to build a coalition and stop all of this infighting, the midterm elections are going to be a bloodbath. You just heard the Speaker of the House say that he believes that Donald Trump will be impeached if the Democrats win in the midterms. Steve Bannon said that if they lose the White House in 2028, a lot of them are going to jail, including him. And believe me when I tell you, if the Democrats take power, they will send them to jail. That's going to happen. This is going to happen. Defying judges, breaking laws, not giving people their just due. You're going to jail. So if that's the outcome that these guys want to avoid, I suggest they stop all the fighting because it's not really helping their movement. It's really, really not, because at the end of the day, as they said, it's the economy, dummy. People are thinking about their bottom line, and there's only so long you can blow hot smoke up people's you know what. It's just not going to last that long. So things need to change. The president just released some information talking about the tariffs are working, this and the tariff. There are people. Do you know that there are people out there that still believe that these tariffs are paid by foreign governments? Are people aware of this? The money paid by tariffs are paid by the consumers. They then took that money and then gave it back to them. That they already taxed from them. There are people out there that actually believe that these foreign companies are the ones that are paying this tariff. Folks, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble here. It's not a good look. You have major voices like what's his name, Joe Rogan, now calling out the president and administration. Even Asmongold, who became a political commentator, even he's trying to jump ship over the Epstein files. Andrew Schultz, who made a total ass of himself, all of a sudden now regrets his vote. Oh, I should have never got involved in politics. Really? Why? Why do you say so? Why do you say so? Oh, well, the president is doing things that I didn't foresee. Really? What's the thing that the president is doing that he didn't tell you he was going to do? What's the thing that President Trump is doing that he didn't say he was going to do? He's delivering on his promises. He's delivering. So for you to now have all of this to suddenly have this epiphany, oh my God, I can't. Maybe the comments that he made about Rob Reiner after he passed away. Is today the first day you ever heard President Donald Trump talk? Didn't you hear him at Charlie Kirk's was it memorial or burial or whatever it was, where his wife Charlie Kirk, his wife said, I think Erica Kirk said, I'm going to forgive my enemies, and Trump said, I don't forgive my enemies. Isn't that what he said? I don't forgive my enemies. But now you're shocked. Oh my God. Can you believe the president said this? Oh Lord, bless your heart. As you guys know, over the last 2 months or so, we've been talking a little bit more politics on the channel. And that's primarily due to the fact that given the things that are happening out there in the world, I have an opinion on these things in my private life. And I said, hey, maybe I should share it with some people and maybe some people will like it. Right. But as I've said on many occasions, I'm not breaking any ground here. There have always been people that talk sports and at time have dabbled into politics. We saw this even back on the January 6th riots. Didn't not ESPN, FS1's Undisputed, didn't they talk about it? You have it there. You have voices like what's the guy's name? I can't even remember his name right now. Jason Whitlock, he talks politics from time to time. A few other people talk politics. So, and then as time has gone on, you've seen more and more people kind of delve into the political arena. You've seen Dan Le Batard do it as well. But some of the bigger names have been Stephen A. Smith and Paul Feinbaum. So what happened? This morning, I was just looking for what to talk about, and I came across an article here from Awful Announcing that really caught my attention, and it really stood out to me. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And it has the following headline that I want to read from you. It says, why do so many sports media stars want to be politicians? And it says from Paul Feinbaum, Michelle Tafoya to Stephen A. Smith, sports media stars are getting more serious about politics. And I said, this would be a pretty interesting read. And I think maybe some people can glean some information. Okay, great. So let's read what this article has to say, because I have some thoughts about this. It says, Paul Feinbaum tested the waters, but immediately decided he would not run for Alabama's open Senate seat. Michelle Tafoya has been kicking around the idea of running for Minnesota's open Senate seat for nearly an entire year. And then there's Stephen A. Smith, who really doesn't want to run for president in 2028. But oh shucks, if we really need him to, he would consider it because he's a patriot. Why are so many stars in sports media industry suddenly interested in running for office? I think the answer is pretty simple. They saw Donald Trump do it. He had no experience and no real ideas. He was just good in front of a microphone. Smith is at the very top of the sports broadcasting world. Feinbaum has ascended to a similar level for college football fans. It's not crazy to think that they might be bored and are looking for more exciting challenge. Tafoya was the gold standard for sideline reporters before stepping away from NBC. She has been trying to make a name for herself in the political world for a while now. Forget the guy who came down the golden escalator in 2015 to call Mexicans the R word. Look at the version of Trump we had on the campaign trail in 2024 or the one in the White House right now. He can't string two coherent sentences together. If you made your living by talking, wouldn't you look at a guy and think, oh my God, this is going to be easy for me? The idea of politics is probably a romantic one to these people. They see a way to leverage their fame and following to change the world. And we saw with Feinbaum, all it takes is a little bit of homework for all that romance to fade away. Plenty of entertainers have made the move into politics. It's a practice that predates Donald Trump by decades. Hell, it predates Ronald Reagan by decades. I want to move forward a little bit. here. MAGA types may scream for athletes to shut up and dribble or for celebrities to stay in their lane, quote unquote. But boy, are they happy to make exceptions for the ones that espouse the right beliefs. Maybe that doesn't matter so much to Smith or Tafoya. Tafoya left the sports world early in 2022. Entirely, in 2022. Smith has stayed present on ESPN while launching a political talk show on Sirius XM. Now, let's be fair. Smith's political opinions seem manufactured to stay right down the middle, and if he tips too far on one side, he makes sure to tip the other way before too much time passes. Tafoya is much clearer about her conservative opinions, but those opinions are shared on a podcast no one listens to. Feinbaum is a different story. He should be on the MAGA's list of acceptable celebrities. He is willing to publicly grovel to Trump in that now infamous interview with Clay Travis. That didn't matter. His opposition was planning to use the clips from his show against him because he showed common sense and acknowledged nuances exist, especially when you look at political and societal topics through a sports lens. Sports talk is a no-nonsense business. No one can get away with saying that the Raiders are the best team in the NFL. A host can say unpopular things and interpret performances and results in all kinds of ways, but the results are the results. Ask anyone who has ever gotten even a minor fact wrong on sports radio or sports television. Even the audience that likes you is happy to shut you down. Donald Trump and JD Vance could not survive in this world, but a sports talk star could theoretically thrive in theirs. Given the state of American political discourse, it's easy to think success is all about performance. Go back to the 1960s. The most important lesson of Kennedy versus Nixon is that presentation matters most of all. Feinbaum, Smith, and Tafoya all know how to deliver their points and how to present themselves on camera. They should be naturals on the campaign trail. And then it says a few other things there. What are my thoughts about this? I think it's an interesting time. I really do believe so. But as it pertains to Paul Feinbaum and Stephen A. Smith, the difference is this, in my personal view. At least Paul Feinbaum has a perspective on things in the world, right? You kind of understand his worldview on certain issues, even though he can be nuanced on certain occasions, but generally you get where he stands on things. And he is a Republican. In the case of Stephen A. Smith, I don't feel the same. I feel that Stephen A. Smith is a fence rider, right? So to me, it seems more like a grift or a money grab to me, because it seems like he's willing to go whatever direction the wind blows. And look, this is something that I had to learn myself as I'm slowly becoming more comfortable talking about these issues, which is this. Look, man, you're not going to make everyone agree with you. You're not going to make everybody happy. So you might as well just say what you think and let the chips fall where they may. No matter what you say, there are going to be those that are going to love what you're saying and those that hate it. The important thing is you're saying what you believe. In the case of Smith, I don't believe that's the case. But there's also something else at play here. And this is just my personal observation of what's going on here beyond what this article entailed. What I also think is happening is this. What usually happens is whenever a person, any given person, acquires wealth, usually the next step is they want to acquire power and influence. There are a lot of people out there that have a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of power and influence. And once you reach a certain level, like the Stephen A. Smiths, and these guys are multimillionaires. You're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And if you have an ego, you now want people to know who you are. And you want to know people. And you want to be a mover and shaker. And to a certain extent, Stephen A. Smith is doing that successfully. Right? He's making a lot of relationships with the Chris Cuomos, the Sean Hannitys, and all the other people that he's brought on his show. And he's building a lot of political connections, which is ultimately what I think he wants, because he wants influence, right? And he understands that, yes, money is important, but power and influence means even more. And I think he wants that. I think that's alluring. I think that's attractive to people like him. Whereas there are other people that don't that they don't lust after things like that. There's some people that are just happy to make their money and go away. And then you have people like me who I just have a point of view on things that I want to share. I discuss these things with my wife all the time. These are things that I watch in my free time. As a matter of fact, to give you guys an insight, look, prior into talking politics, we've been talking sports for 7 years. 7 years we've been doing it. And generally what my day looked like was, if I wasn't talking sports, I was watching it all day long. But now what I've noticed is that I'm even spending more time watching political news than I do watch NBA news. But because I'm seasoned and I've been talking about it for 7 years, so there's rarely something that goes on that I don't know about. I don't know where to get the information. So I'm saying to myself, you have a genuine interest in this. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to run for office. It's, oh, nobody's trying to run for office, or I want this guy to know me. I want that. No. It's just an interest. And I had to learn, look, if you're going to do this thing, you got to say what you believe. At first, one of my biggest fears was turning people off. Are we going to lose subscribers? Are people going to leave? But what I've discovered is this. Ironically, what's happened is the more we've talked about politics, the more subscribers we've gained, which is a revelation to me. And I think a few things are happening. Obviously, we've lost subs, right? People are like, man, Charles is woke or whatever. I don't like what Charles is doing. But there are other people that are like, you know what? I like the guy's sports content. I'm just going to keep watching. If he drops a political video that I don't like, I'm not going to watch it. Right. And then we have other people that are discovering us. I'm like, hey, I like this guy. You know, let me see what he has to say. And then there are people that discover, I don't like it. But at a certain point, you have to come to terms with it. And I think that that's something Stephen A. Smith is not. I don't think he's gotten to that point yet. I don't think he's gotten to the point where he's like, you know what? I'm going to say what I believe. And that's that. He hasn't gotten to that point yet. And you can see that with his content. He says that I'm an independent. He's the only independent that trashes that spent the entire 2025 trashing the Democrats. What kind of independent is that? It's only at the end of the year where he sees the president's poll numbers slipping. He sees the redactions that are taking place with the Epstein files. He sees a lot of his supporters tapering off and saying, no, Mr. President, this is not what we signed up for. You see a lot of his supporters saying, wait, did the president just say that the economy is a Democratic hoax? When he noticed that there's beginning to be a little bit of a shift, he's now shifting. And my prediction is going to be the following. In 2026, if you see the tailwind pointing in the direction of the Democrats in terms of the midterms, he's going to flip. And then he's going to hit you guys with, oh, I've always been an independent. But that's not going to work. Right? That's not going to work. And what I've learned is, and I learned this fairly quickly, you got to take a side. In politics, man, you gotta take a side. You can't do, oh, I'm here, and it doesn't work. Name someone apart from Bernie Sanders that's in the middle that you know about. Name them. That's ever held the presidency. Name them. The majority of Americans are going to vote Democrat or Republican. So you got to take a side, and you got to be willing to piss certain people off. You just got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to do it.